10 mysterious things that were found frozen in ice. You'll learn that ice is indeed good at preserving things, and you won't believe what the number one finding is. You'll be as shocked as the people who first saw it, so let's begin, shall we? Number 10. The Viking Sword on the Mountain. It only makes sense to start the list with something that was found up in the mountains of a very cold country. In fact, let me give you all a heads up. We'll be having quite a few findings in the northernmost countries of the world, so expect to hear about them a few times during this video. This first one is in Norway, where a group of reindeer hunters found a well-preserved sword at high altitude. It is the sword of a Viking, and it's believed to be more than 1,000 years old. It's finding led experts to believe that there might be other artifacts out there waiting to be discovered. But after some exploration, they came to learn that the Viking sword was an isolated find. The quality of the iron and the extreme cold is what kept this artifact intact, although there were probably some organic materials with it that disappeared over the years. After a little bit of research, people learned that the Viking who owned this sword was probably lost and died in the mountain where it was found. Number 9. Frozen Islands. We're in the midst of the 21st century, and it seems that we've finally come to a point where every piece of land around the world has been discovered. Now, our exploration is taking us on journeys underwater and even out of our planet to see what else can be colonized. However, with so much ice in the world, it only makes sense that some chunks of land haven't been discovered by modern-day explorers and are well preserved in cold temperatures. This is the case of some islands around Greenland that had been hidden from society until recently. From 1999 all the way to 2014, a group of islands started to emerge in the northwestern part of Greenland. Scientific research credits global warming for these discoveries, as the apparition of the islands happened due to glaciers retreating quickly and giving way to the undiscovered masses of land. This event has forced maps to be redrawn, so the new pieces of land that were unknown to us can now be included. If the ice keeps retreating in the way it did over the last 20 years, we might witness more land discovery soon. Whether we should be excited or worried, that's kind of a 50-50 guess. Number 8. The Ancient Forest. The story of this frozen forest starts about 1,000 years ago when the Mendenhall Glacier starts to advance and covered a forest in gravel. This gravel acted as a protection to the forest to the point that the glacier was able to advance right on top of it. Flash forward to the modern days, the glacier is now receding and uncovering trees which remained intact throughout the whole process. Archaeologists came to study the age of the trees, and they found out that most of them date from 1,000 to 2,350 years old. Imagine staying alive for that long. If only those trees could talk, I'm sure they'd have a lot of crazy stories to tell. Number 7. An ancient plant. We always hear about animals evolving while others go extinct, but survival and extinction are not limited to animals only. There are also a ton of plants that we don't have with us today due to their extinction, and the next finding on this list can give you an idea of what some ancient plants looked like. Back over in 2012, a group of Russian scientists were able to revive plants that had been frozen in the tundra. They were able to bring them back to life due to the fact that some of the tissue of the plant was still alive. They were able to produce new specimens of the plants, which later were able to grow, produce flowers, and even new seeds. It seems like ice can really preserve life without even trying hard. Number 6. Anthrax. Just like I said, ice does a really great job of preserving life, and that includes some of the things we don't really want to keep amongst us, that being viruses and bacterias. This is exactly what happened with anthrax. This disease came back to life after high temperatures melted some in Siberia. The anthrax bacteria had been sitting on the bodies of frozen reindeer for a long time and was released back into the atmosphere when the ice started to melt. The dangerous disease had been out of the region for more than 75 years, but it came back and infected multiple herds of reindeers and the lives of 20 people. It even caused the unfortunate death of a 12-year-old boy. So if you ever find yourself near regions where ice is melting, keep in mind that some diseases might be released around you without you even noticing. Number 5. The Baby Mammoth. Yuri Kuti, a reindeer breeder in Russia, came across something rather impressive during one of his journeys. He was so fascinated that he hiked more than 200 kilometers just to hit an expert from a museum to have a look and explain just what this finding was. It turns out it was a baby mammoth that had been frozen in the tundra for about 42,000 years. This baby was so well preserved that scientists were even able to tell what the mammoth ate before getting frozen. There have been many specimens that have been found frozen, but this baby is one of the best preserved mammoths in the world. This baby received the name Lyuba, which is also the name of Kuti's wife, the explorer who found it. I guess it's a great way of honoring him. Number 4. The Fish in the Wall of Ice. There's this photo of fish inside a wall of ice that made everyone go crazy on social media a while ago. As you might have guessed, this wall of ice was once a wave, and it seems like the fish were able to ride above the wave. But they never made it back down in this lake in South Dakota. No one could really explain what happened, but my guess would be that the temperature dropped in the blink of an eye, but that is pretty unlikely. Experts, however, believe that the fish were not even up there and the wall formed as a result of lack of oxygen at the bottom of the ocean. This deficit then caused fish and other living beings to come up to the surface and get frozen in this unlikely but striking manner. The most famous photo of this phenomenon were taken by Kelly Preheim. She says that they were actually more fish than what you can see in the pictures. She claims there were actually thousands of them. I guess cold temperatures can be quite brutal to wildlife sometimes, but hey, it gave us a pretty cool picture. Number 3. The Iron Age Horse. Norway has been the scenario to a lot of cool findings. I'm only giving you a few of them on this video, but if you go online, you'll find that they witnessed the discovery of things frozen in ice quite a lot. Next on this list, I have the bones of an Iron Age horse. They were found up in the mountains about 2,000 meters high. And next to the bones, there was some manure and a horseshoe, which indicates that horses were used in the Iron Age to carry heavy stuff up these mountains. As the ice melts in this region, archaeologists are finding a lot of tools that help us understand the ways in which people lived in the past. However, these artifacts start deteriorating as soon as the ice melts, and for that reason, the experts need to hurry and uncover as many artifacts as possible before it's too late. Now it's time for the day's best pick. The picture I have today is of something that looks like a human figure frozen in ice, and so far we've talked about tools, bacteria, plants, and animals that were found in ice. We even saw that plants and bacteria can survive for a long time locked in ice, while animals die as soon as they're frozen. However, that being said, their looks can still remain intact. Now it is time to wonder, what happens when a human is frozen in ice? What does that look like? Let's have a look. Number 2. The Incan Sacrifice Victims. Ancient cultures amaze me, and I personally believe there is much we can learn from them. Some of their practices, however, are quite questionable, scary, immoral, the list goes on here. But then again, I guess that gives us more reason to learn and try to understand why they did what they did. In the Incan culture, capacocha was a very common practice, and it entailed the sacrifice of children. Well, that's just fun. Some Spanish texts from the colonies indicate that the most beautiful and talented children were chosen to be surrendered to the Incan gods as a way of celebration or as a way to respond to natural threats. Now, you might think these stories are crazy or even made up, but I can confidently tell you that these are facts, and there are 3 frozen bodies that can prove it. Back in 1999, the bodies of 3 children were found on a volcano in Argentina. They were well preserved and frozen and were found just in time before the summer heat started to melt them down and decompose them. Through the study of the bodies, experts came to the conclusion that these children had been well taken care of prior to the intended sacrifice. Information gathered from the hair also indicates that they were probably drugged before carrying them up to the top of the volcano about 500 years ago when they died of hypothermia. These mummies are on display at the High Mountain Archaeology Museum in Argentina, and I guess it is a pretty dark story actually. But hey, it does open new understanding of cultures from the past at least, so that's something.
I saved the best for last, but first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. If you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it, it really works.
Number 1. The Missing Couple. Imagine getting lost and being found 75 years later. This is exactly what happened to Marceline and Francine Dumoulin in Switzerland after they went missing on August 15, 1942. The couple was meant to go back to their 7 children after going out to milk their cows in the southern part of the country, but Marceline and Francine never went back and their children were put in the homes of welcoming locals who took care of them from that moment onwards. 75 years later, in 2017, a group of ski workers found the perfectly preserved bodies of the Dumoulin couple. They knew they were from the 40s just by looking at the clothes they were wearing. It seems like they had an accident such as a fall down that ended up in them getting covered in snow and ice, which kept them from going back to their family. Marceline Audrey Dumoulin, the youngest of the daughters, says that she and her siblings never gave up hope that one day they would find their parents. And now, 75 years later, these children can finally say a proper goodbye to their parents. If you could preserve something in ice, what would it be? Or better yet, what is something that you would like to find? And what's the most interesting findings from this list? Let us know in the comments section down below. Well, all said and done, that's our video for today, folks, and I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you next time. Later, everybody.